For a lot of people, the process of transforming their self-concept does not feel authentic to their true self. It can very quickly feel like you're just pretending to be someone that you're not. And you cannot fake your way into a new self-concept, because if it's not real, it's never going to last. It's never going to be embodied, and it's never going to be sustainable. Today I'll explain a bit more about what doesn't work, and I'll give you the 6 keys to authentic self-concept embodiment, or in other words, I'll show you what will work. Hello my loves, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Lorena, I'm a somatic self-concept and identity coach, and I support you to bridge the gap between who you currently are or perceive yourself as and who you desire to be or become. So this isn't going to be a superficial how-to video where I'll give you some quick tips to pretend your way into a new self-concept. This is a guide into authentic self-concept transformation, where we will explore the process of true embodiment and lasting change in your identity. The problem that occurs for most people in their process of self-concept transformation, or what they attempt to do, is that they have this idea of who or what they want to be, and it might be completely misaligned with their most authentic version of themselves. Because you may not even know the potential that you have. You may not even know how confident and worthy and magnetic you could be and feel. And these states, these feelings that everybody kind of wants to have, this confidence and magnetism and this energy of conviction, of deep self-trust, of this feeling of anything is possible for me, and I deeply believe in myself, I deeply trust myself, and I can feel my worth and I see it reflected back to me. All of that starts with authenticity. That won't happen when you're faking an identity, or when you're trying to be someone else, or when you're pretending to have characteristics that aren't true and authentic to you. A new self-concept is a version of you, not someone else. If you want to avoid back and forth in your self-concept, if you want to avoid the experience of one day feeling really confident and magnetic and then the next going right back, if you don't want any push and pull in your self-perception, then you need a sustainable and a fully embodied transformation of your self-concept. You essentially need a rebirth. And if it's embodied, that means it's felt. And in order to feel it, it needs to be in alignment with who you are. It can't be a product of your imagination or an inspiration from somebody outside of you. If it's not authentic to you and it's coming from someone else or from somewhere outside of you, because it doesn't feel authentic, your subconscious is going to fight it. It's kind of like when you have surgery or you get some medication and your immune system starts fighting it because it's actually not part of you and your body. And all that's not to say that inspiration isn't a great idea. Of course, you can and should let yourself be inspired. In fact, most of my clients who join Recreate Yourself say to me when they sign up that one of the major reasons they chose to do this program is because they witnessed my own transformation. They saw who I had become and said to themselves, I want what she has, and so they went for it. And I think that's awesome, but they don't want to be me, right? They just see their own potential reflected back through me. That is what inspires them. That's a big difference. If you see something in somebody else that makes you jealous or that inspires you, it just means that there's a part of you that has access to that too. And that's what we're going to work with and get to when we work together. It's not an attempt to pretend anything or fake anything. So faking doesn't work, but let's get into what does work and how we can make it really sustainable. I will be sharing with you the 6 keys for authentic self-concept embodiment. But before we do that, I just want to point out that I have a free resource linked below. It's a blueprint and a checklist. It's called the Self-Concept Mastery Blueprint, and it's a breakdown of the method that I teach, all the components that really matter when you're wanting to change your self-concept in a lasting way, in a way where it feels truly real and embodied and authentic. So go and check that out. The link is in the description, and then you can apply it right away. Let's get into it. Key number 1 is releasing your programmed identity. When we talk about authenticity, we first need to acknowledge that your current beliefs about yourself, the way you currently carry yourself, the automatic assumptions that you have, the automatic reactions that you have, everything you believe about yourself and the world and your reality and other people, that's not really you. That's a self-concept that you have adopted over time, that you have taken on over time. And you can have adopted that through various avenues. Maybe it's what other people told you. Maybe it's what you've seen in the media. Maybe it's just what you unconsciously made things mean based on experiences that you've had in your upbringing. For example, if you grew up in a home environment where you never got the chance to talk, everybody was always talking over you, so you were never heard. Maybe eventually, because you couldn't fight that, you stopped talking altogether and you got really quiet. And over time, you may have begun to identify as a shy person, as an insecure person. But that's not necessarily who you are. That's what you were shaped into. Through your experience, through trauma responses, you've adopted that self-concept as a protective mechanism. It's not authentic to you, it's based on trauma. And because you're identifying with it, it can feel like you, but it's not, and that means it's actually a lot easier to change than you may think. One of my clients had really so much messaging from her family around career and academic achievements, and so that's what she was striving for. But those were desires that weren't actually authentic to her. She wasn't aware of that because the identification with that self-concept was so strong. She really thought that's what she wanted. So in Recreate Yourself, we really released all the layers of conditioning and essentially that programmed identity that she had. And now her lifestyle is completely different. Her lifestyle is one of freedom. She's traveling the world. She's not all about the achievements. She's all about adventure and creativity and expression. And she's really found what feels true to herself. Key number 2 is integrating your shadows and your unconscious parts of your psyche. As I already hinted at, most of your self-concept isn't necessarily what you're aware of. Who you assume you are is mostly so unconscious that it's so embedded in your identity that you don't even know it needs to be looked at or dismantled. You can think of your shadows as parts of yourself that you've kind of buried in the basement where it's dark. So you can't see them, but that doesn't mean they're not there. They're still cluttering up your emotional space and they're still projecting out into your external experience. So what we do when we integrate your shadows and recreate yourself, it's like we're going into the basement and we're turning on the light, which is not an overnight process because you can imagine that it's pretty jarring if you find all those things in the basement. But we're gonna clean it out and we're gonna address the dark things that you thought were monsters that you needed to hide, and we're gonna bring them to the light and we're gonna return them as part of you, which will make it all feel a lot more authentic to you because you're not denying parts of yourself. You're not hiding or rejecting parts of yourself. Returning to your most authentic self and ultimately your desired self-concept in a way that it's really embodied, that includes facing those shadows. That includes navigating these parts of your psyche that you don't have easy access to. And that's why I'm here to support you with this when you're ready for it. We access these parts of your subconscious through your nervous system. So we go into the parts of your psyche that you can't address consciously or just through your mindset or thinking about it. And what that does, it brings you into a state of wholeness. And from that place, you can easily embody a different self-concept because it's like all the potential is there and there's nothing blocking it anymore. The third key is to rewire your habitual state of being and your go-to nervous system state. So your nervous system is another big aspect. And that's actually something that I will not go into in this video because it's such a deep and important topic and I have multiple videos on this topic. So I'll link all of those in the description below and you can watch them all. Rewiring your nervous system state or your habitual state is changing what your status quo is. Changing what your normal reactions are without actually changing the reactions themselves actively, but by changing how you're feeling and who you're being when you're just walking around. Because then automatically what triggers you, what annoys you, what you think, what you feel will change very naturally. Key number 4 is to own your desires. I'm telling you, whether it's in Recreate Yourself or even before clients work with me, when I'm just talking to people on Instagram, for example, and they share about what they want, about their vision, or I ask them about it, there is often some hesitation, some minimizing of what they want. There's almost always some underlying shame. So maybe they get quieter, or they're shy about it, or they don't even dare to say it out loud. And I get that voicing and claiming your desires and your future self can feel really, really edgy. I used to feel like this too. But just think about where that comes from. It usually happens because you don't believe it's possible, because you're lacking self-trust, because you maybe wonder whether you really deserve it, because otherwise, why couldn't you make it happen yet? You may worry about saying it out loud or sharing it with others because what if they judge you? What if they think you're full of yourself? What if you fail and you're witnessed in that? But if you knew you couldn't fail, you wouldn't be shy to say, I want an epic relationship. This is why one of the results that I'm proudest of in my clients is not getting the thing. It's that unwavering self-trust and conviction that they get. And it's because of who they are becoming. And that doesn't happen through denying your desires. That can only happen through owning them. Number 5 is be unapologetic. Very similar vibe to the previous one, but it's about embracing all of who you are, flaws and all. Because let's be honest, at the end, that's what you want anyway. There's a reason it feels fake or off when you try to embody characteristics that don't feel true or authentic to you, or even beliefs that don't feel true or authentic to you. And I'm not saying you can't change your beliefs, right? Of course you can. We can and will change your beliefs of what's possible for you and what you think you're capable of what you deserve, of what your future holds. But we do that through a really emotionally integrated and intentional process so that you're not bypassing anything. Because bypassing is just going to make it feel really fake and inauthentic, and that never feels good. A good example for this is if you're in a relationship and you're pretending to be different than what you really are because you think you're not going to be loved for your true self. Maybe you're playing it cool, you're playing games, you're pretending to like things that you don't really like. Now you're in a relationship, but you still don't feel loved because your partner doesn't actually know the real you. And you're afraid that when they do, they won't love you anymore. But how does that feel? It feels so icky because it feels out of integrity. It doesn't feel authentic. So you want to stay true to yourself. You want to be unapologetic about who you are. And from that place, your beliefs can change in a way where it feels good and where you're not having to fake or pretend. Number 6, choose yourself before you choose others. So along with all this also goes putting yourself first. Don't make other people the main character in your life, okay? Your desires and who you want to be aren't actually connected to other people at all. Your self-concept is not about how other people perceive you, it's about how you perceive you. It's about who you think you are and how you show up and feel. But sometimes we can make it so, right? Sometimes we can have the desire to change our self-concept because of the effect it may hopefully have on other people. But that is not what it's about, and it's not what's going to fulfill you or feel authentic to you. When you think of the self-concept that you want to embody, that you want to step into, that you want to sustain, when you think of the rebirth that you want to experience, think about whether that comes from a fear of judgment, whether that comes from messages that you've received from people around you, or whether it comes from the bottom of your heart. It feels very, very different. Don't let other people, your fear of judgment of what other people may think or their expectations rule you. You are capable of so much more than you think, but it's about who you are choosing to be, not who others want you to be or who you think others want you to be. I would love to know which of these 6 keys resonated the most of you, which one you feel drawn to working on the most. Leave me a comment below, share your thoughts and takeaways, and I'll see you in next week's video.